A lot of people out there talking about
how to be a digital nomad, how to quit your day job, and I totally get it, but I feel like it's what I've seen out there is a lot of generic advice, and it just occurred to me that someone might want to hear an actual personal story about this, because I didn't set out to be that, and I don't consider myself a digital nomad because I don't move that much.
Yeah, the nomad part.
Yeah, like I've the time I've been freelancing, 6 years in Beijing, 5 years in Dali, and now I'm here. I mean, it's like, but there's flexibility, obviously, because I get to choose when I want to move. Anyway, so I just thought, when I've gone and looked at those websites, I'd never really heard anyone talk about it in different terms, I guess. I don't know.
Like as personal experience. Yeah. Hey there.
Hello.
And there's going to be music along with our interview.
I'm curious, is this an acoustic?
Yes.
Very slim profile acoustic though, huh?
Yeah. I think I might be going to play guitar with Paul later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Does he know about that?
Yeah. Yes.
No, I'm going.
He doesn't.
I have a phone call. I had a phone call yesterday.
I'm gonna spring it.
That would have been a better answer.
See, I wondered what would happen. Because I heard you say to me, well, I talked to him and I think the next step is he'll confirm with me. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
And then I went home and Paul said, oh, yeah, tomorrow 4 or 5-ish. I was like, right. And then yesterday morning, I'm like, well, you guys going to be meeting? Because like sort of none of my business, but I really would like to know.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I think 4 or 5. And I went, oh, that's been confirmed. And he walked away. It's like, it's not my business. I shouldn't get in the way. And then around
But I want to know.
3:30, I know, I decided to be home. Because it's like, I'm going to be around. I want to know what's going on. This is really interesting. And it's like, okay, no sign of Paul at home. And I called him. And he goes, I thought Mas and I were doing this at 4 or 5. And I said, well, did you call him and confirm? He says, just now, but he's not answering. He's like, well, it's 4. I didn't.
Yeah, 4. He called me back.
He's probably doing something else by 4 if he didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Around 4. They called me yesterday afternoon. Yes.
And so we're all learning about how to collaborate with each other. Which is always the question.
Do you guys jam acoustic, or do you have a plug-in ever, or electric? Or?
Actually, I have a plug-in guitar and acoustic guitar.
Okay.
And because recently I want to, how to say, usually I play electric guitar at first.
Yeah.
And I use a lot of pick. I try to play some metal, rock and roll stuff. Just speedy riffs. Something like this.
Yeah.
And I realized the touch affects the tone, the feeling a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of great guitarists talk about it. So I want to practice my touch on acoustic guitar. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And I want to interrupt.
No, we were just.
I was just saying, I don't know, things might happen really fast, but my role, as far as I'm aware, is kind of meta observer. In order to assist with the editing, because the question is, how does it get edited? What happens? And it hasn't happened yet, so we can't answer that question.
Yeah.
But I told you I'd meet you there, so I'm listening so as to help. I assume you're doing the sound recording.
Yes.
So I intend to be quiet unless called upon.
Are you going to record like this?
Well, we've started talking. So because we started talking, I started recording the pre-conversation, in case it's useful. Yeah. Anything else checking in today for you?
I would say this therapy for my friend from Hong Kong, and last time 2 days ago I took the 3 minutes program. Just like my Hong Kong friend gave me gas oil, and you put like fire on it. Nothing special on both sides, but what happened? Very. I don't even know how to say it, but I because what I can say, because it's so. I think the change is fundamental change. I'm living the same life, but my experience so different. I don't know why. And then, yeah, and I know why, but it's a. And now I can really appreciate my life. Yeah, I'm glad I'm still here. Yeah, I made it.
Yay!
Yay!
So this is what we'll be recording on. No.
This is the pre-recording because we started talking and Josh started saying powerful things and I said, I'm gonna...
No, it's just
Okay, Jane's perception. Yeah. And so we have like pre-chit chat and I think Moss is gonna do recording of like, I'm gonna call it real recording.
Real recording?
And Jane's gonna observe energetics and be quiet, except for right now.
I see. Then can I borrow your equipment?
This?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think I can really recording.
Okay, good. Do you want to start a new file? Or shall we just keep going?
I think we can keep going.
Okay, and where does it go? You tell me where it goes so it gets better sound. I know nothing about that.
It might looks a little bit crazy, but
Oh yeah, hang from up there. What's it for, you know, man? Right.
yeah, I think the microphone is
Yeah.
here.
I think the
Yeah.
two corners. Yeah.
We can also loop it through one of those things so it doesn't bump against the middle pole.
Yeah,
It's just a thought.
like here, from here.
Over the wooden thing. Yeah, and then just loop it through.
Yeah.
Here. Maybe one of them will be easier to put it out there. Just one piece of wood instead of two.
They're using anything else like
And then
Great.
loop it out.
that's what we want to talk about.
Oh.
Or you don't want to talk about.
There's nothing I don't want to talk about, so that's okay, wherever the conversation goes. As far as what I want to talk about, I just thought it might be interesting to hear, because I've been freelancing for 10 years, you know, I've done a little bit of office work in between, but in any case, my feeling is just that when I've there's a lot of people like saying, oh, digital nomad lifestyle, blah, 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 blah. But my feeling is, wow, that there's a lot of different ways to get there. And so I just thought it might be interesting to share some of
How it worked for you.
how it worked for me. Exactly. But, you know kind of also your audience or what you want your web
My audience is.
your website looks like, or your so you can feel free to ask the questions that'll help you get to
Yeah, I have
the
some
kinds of
questions
things.
here.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to ask Josh some questions. Just because I'm design like an FAQ about this kind of lifestyle.
Oh, okay.
Without 9-to-5 job and freelancing,
Yeah.
mysterious being
Yeah.
for outside of this.
Yeah.
And some questions immediately hit me. One is, you don't have colleague, you don't have boss. How you maintain your drive, your product ability, and how do you know you are progressing all the time? You are you're growing in your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, but since you're alone.
Yeah.
And do you have a friend? Do you have a community? Do something got your back? Because when I'm in the company, I know this company like got my back when I have this idea and from Apple, and from Google. And I think those problems. In fact, we have that resource too.
Right.
Just maybe usually normally people don't know because they are not in it.
Right.
So and for me those resources are still new to me, and I don't have that much since I'm a beginner.
Right.
And beginner freelancer. So I'm really want to love to hear your experience, your
right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So maybe we'll touch on that too during our...
Because I think fundamentally we are the same, and I think without colleague, without boss, I can I can focus on what I really want to improve at, instead of other people want me to good at.
Right.
Yeah, something. Those questions I think I can answer.
Boy.
So are we recording?
Yes.
It's recording.
It's recording.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we begin? So,
I'll keep all that in mind because it touches on things that I also think would be really good to talk about.
Yes, great.
Because I think some of those questions aren't always addressed in discussions that are out there, so they're good things to talk about.
So welcome to this show. We're in Tâilâm today, and my name is aChhun, and with me here is Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hi.
And what brought us here today is 2 days ago we were having conversation, and I mentioned that for the past year I have been able to work freely and on my own terms, not having to work for other people and have freedom financially. And Josh mentioned that that's also his situation now, and that he would be very happy to share this and when he heard that I have a deep calling to help people achieve this as well. So Josh, could you tell us a bit about where you started before this became what you wanted?
Okay. Great question. So I actually studied computer science. I'll start out saying my freelance work primarily is freelance translation, Chinese to English. So to have an idea of how this has been a very winding path, I started out as a computer science graduate. I had a job programming, but I just was very clear at that time that I don't know. It kind of drove me crazy to just sit at a desk all day. I was in about the best company you could imagine. Like, this company let us go play ultimate frisbee in the afternoons on Thursdays. You could come in late, work late if you wanted to, as long as you put in your 40 hours. They kind of didn't care when you were there. If you wanted to get your work done Monday through Thursday and take Friday off.
But you still had to be in the office for 40 hours. No,
you didn't. So they were already really open, and yet I wasn't feeling it. And at the time, I think a really big part of this, the process for me, is realizing more and more, what are your areas where you can grow into something, and what are the areas where that's just kind of who you are and you need to work with it. Because at the time, I think I was still in the mindset of thinking, there must be something wrong with me. This is the way the world wants us to work, and most people can handle it, and I've got a better situation than most. And so there's a lot of self-blame and
what
stuff.
do I have to be miserable?
Right. Why am I finding it so stressful to sit here and do this? And so so that's kind of where it started. And what was the next part of your question?
That's where you started. When would you say that you felt a shift, where you realized that maybe it's not your fault, or that maybe there is a way that didn't have to?
It was events beyond my control. The first thing that happened was the .com crash hit, and I lost my job. So I was no longer a computer programmer. The second thing I think that happened is not long before that, I had been able to save up some vacation time, and I went to Indonesia for a month and traveled, and I knew I was really passionate about other cultures, and particularly music was what drew me there. I was interested in traditional music of Indonesia, but something about that trip, it was just so magical for me. I had been interested particularly in Asian cultures for years, and yet I had never actually gone and traveled there. I mean, at that point I was, let me think, 25 years old, and yet I remember in college when I was studying computer science, every time I'd take a break from my computer science work, I would go to the library stacks in the section mostly where it was like Asian religions and stuff, and I would be reading books about Buddhism and Hinduism, and books about the samurai, and books about, like, again, music. I would just read ethnomusicology stuff. So it was like very clear that I was interested, and yet probably from age 20, and yet here I was 25, and it was the first time I actually went to Asia. So that was a big impact too, because it gave me this sense that, wow, when you really connect to something that is meaningful to you, you get this huge opening up of possibilities. I felt these on that trip, just like the possibilities of life somehow. And then I came back from that trip, and like 3 months later I lost my job anyways. So, you know, I think those two factors, and at that point I was, I could have scrambled. It was a tough job market. I probably could have scrambled and found another programming job, but I decided, hey, if I'm not going to work, let's take the time to like start researching other options.
And what was your goal at that time? Like, what you knew that what you didn't want, but did you have a vision of what you did want?
See, this is where I think I have a lot to offer, because I didn't have a goal. I think there's a lot of stuff out there nowadays about how you have to visualize exactly what you want and the universe will give you. But I think it's also important to be honest when you're just confused, and let yourself be okay with being confused. Why do we have all this judgment? I was 25 years old. Looking back as a 40, soon to be 46-year-old, it's like I laugh. Like, why did it bother me so much I was confused? What a great age to be confused. Where's the shame in being confused? Where's the shame in just trying some things out to see how they fit? So this is something I would really emphasize is if you haven't figured out what you want, you know, your passion and your vision or your feeling can give you a direction, but it's often by taking steps that we actually learn in a more concrete way what that thing should look like or will look like for you. So I just had this vague general idea, something with other cultures, something to do with Asia. I didn't know much more. And I knew probably living overseas. I'd probably try to go live overseas. There wasn't a big thing about, there weren't a lot of resources online about being a digital nomad or whatever, so I didn't have any conception of what that was going to look like. The one thing actually I knew was some people I know have gone overseas to teach English, and that was a way they could make money, and the work schedule wasn't too demanding. So that was kind of the direction that I started looking, because it was the only thing in my field of experience at that time that even was close to that direction.
When you had that shift and you saw that there was a pull in that direction, what was the first step you took in that direction?
Well, I would say the first steps had already been taken, because I was always already reading so much, and I was participating in stuff. You know, I had participated in sort of like a meditation group. So some of these things about Asian culture that were attracting me, I was also studying music from some teachers from Indonesia, because I liked the music. So, you know, I was already doing these things in my way in America to contact with the cultures I was interested in. I would say another thing that really intrigued me was Chinese medicine. So I'd already been treated for some things by a Chinese doctor, because I was curious what that would be like. So those first steps are important, but I think in terms of more concrete steps, I I still had a very conventional mindset. And what I did is I said, well, if I'm going to go teach English overseas, I'd better go get some training, because I want to know. I thought I was going to like computer programming. I didn't like it. If I just leap overseas and start teaching English, what if I don't like that? So I said, I'm going to go. I got the RSA CELTA certificate. It's something like a TEFL certificate. It was a 4-week training, and it was great. And it really helped me feel like, oh, I feel like I know I'm going to at least somewhat enjoy teaching. And I have some skills, so I don't feel like I'm just an imposter. I'm not. I know it's easy, it's kind of silly, because really I could have just gone and gotten a job. Anybody could have at that time, and probably it's still true today that almost any native English speaker can just show up and find a job if you have a college degree and you want to teach English. But in any case, for me, it was just like a nice, coming from this very traditional mindset of work, thinking, well, how am I going to do this job if I don't know how to do it? So going and getting that certification gave me a lot more confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the confidence that you were.
Yeah, and actually there was one thing that was really smart about it, I would say, even though it wasn't necessary. But, moving overseas is already a big adjustment. Moving into a new line of work is already also a big adjustment. So I kind of helped myself make one of those transitions.
Before the other one.
Yes, exactly. And I ended up getting a job teaching TOEFL preparation classes in the U.S. for my last 6 months there before I moved overseas. So I actually had a real grounding at that point in teaching English professionally before I went. Not necessary at all, like I said. And now looking back, I think, oh, that was kind of foolish. But hey, there was that, like I said, there was that one smart thing, is that, hey, I was already going to be dealing with culture shock. So why not at least have some job experience, so I know I'm not also panicking because I don't know how to do my job.
Let me jump timelines a bit and come back to now.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a bit what a day or a week of your life is like now?
Yeah, I sort of was realizing we haven't really gotten to freelance yet, but that was kind of part of my point, is it was a really slow process for me to gradually envision what that life would look like, and it was a slow process to also accept that, like stop judging myself for wanting to live life differently. So just to make a sort of transition. So what does it look like today? I think it looks like, one thing I've really learned is that freelancing can look a lot of different ways. And it's not just for different people, it's for you at different points in your freelance career, what you want it to look like at that time. So I'm in a phase right now where it really is work that I want to make me good money. And it's a transition, because not so long ago I was more in a phase where I was like, I want to just be working on projects that I'm passionate about. So, a year ago I was translating novels. It didn't pay as well as the more commercial work, but I wanted to make sure that, hey, this is a work of literature that I enjoy. I'm going to enjoy translating this. Now I'm in a phase where I want to make money, and so things look a little different. But what it looks like when I'm on a job, what it looks like is I've kind of come down to pretty strict time management to make it work. And this comes back to one of Masa's questions at the beginning, is that how do you keep your motivation going? There's no pressure. There's no one telling you what to do. How do you know you're progressing? Time management for the key is that there's a system that I looked at online called Pompdoro. Have you ever?
Yes, the 25-minute tomato clock.
Yes. For me, it's kind of the key. I've made my own adjustments to it, but what I've found is it really suits me. I'm very easily distractible, but I also, once my concentration gets focused, I'm incredibly productive for short periods of time. So what the Pompdoro thing is it trained me to stretch that super mega productive thing to 25 minutes and not no distractions whatsoever. I don't get water, I don't go to the bathroom, I make sure I all got done before, I don't look at email, I don't do whatever. And I find it's like mind-blowing how, especially as a translator, because you can really track your time. How many words did you get
Otherwise,
done?
just keep going and going and going.
In an hour, right? and it's mind-blowing to me what, after really committing to the Pompdoro system, it's mind-blowing to me what my per hour of actual work productivity is got to be easily double what it was before. Which is amazing, because most people want to freelance because they want their time.
Right.
So if you can find a way to make the actual work you do so efficient, you're just buying yourself more time back, right?
Right.
So I really would highly recommend, I don't know, it may not work for everybody, but you do have to find some way to manage your time. Like whether it's when do I start working and when do I stop? Because sometimes it helps your body get into the mode. If it knows that 10 a.m. is when you start, that can be helpful. And it can be a system too where you know when you get a break. So if you're a distractible person, you just have your timer and you're like, no, I just got to do 5 more minutes, then I'll go goof around and do that other thing I want to do. But I'm just going to get this, 5 minutes done. So, and to bring back that other theme, though, another thing was what my day looks like is, honestly, if you're talking actual 25-minute segments of productive time, 2 of those, let's call it 1 hour, because, you do have the right to get up and pee, and get a cup of coffee, So actually, a lot of the time, I'm only doing about 3 to maybe 4.5 hours of work a day.
3 to 4.5 hours.
Yeah, so roughly it would be, if you're talking Pomdoros, it would be 3 to 4 Pomdoros in the morning before lunch, and 3 to 5, let's say, in the afternoon. You can't always guarantee that, because sometimes there's a deadline. But it blows my mind that that amount of work now is sufficient for me to make money. Because if you talked to me 8 years ago in my freelancing career, doing the same work, I would have felt like that was taking me something like 8 or 9 hours to complete.
A day.
Because I wasn't really clear about what of those 8 or 9 hours was focused time and what of that 8 or 9 hours was me being distracted. It was all intermingled. I go to look up some phrase online, for my work, and then there's another link that pops up, and I start reading about that, and like, who knows? None of us have any idea how long that was. It might have been 3 minutes, it might have been 20 minutes, and then you go back to work, and then you count your hours at the end of the day, and you think, wow, I worked 8 hours today. Why didn't I? It's like, so that system for me was really key. And sorry, I want to add one more point though. I really had to, this is another area where I had to stop judging myself. Is for a long time I was feeling guilty about why am I such a weakling? I only can get done 4 hours a day. Other people go to an office and work 8 hours. And really to realize, first of all, just because they're in an office doesn't mean they're actually productive for 8 hours. They're chatting to their coworkers, they're, whatever. Fine. What I'm doing is I'm banking that time so that I can use it on things I want, and I'm not just dithering it away. The other thing too is, I can't remember the times I've worked in an office, how many times I might have been sitting there for an hour and a half staring at a screen, and all I was actually doing for that hour and a half was trying not to fall asleep. Is that productive? So stopping judging myself around that, was really important too, to say, hey, and I really had a very nice proof of this concept, because I recently started freelancing for a company that had very strict demands. Full-time translator should be able to complete X amount of words a day, and I was able to prove to myself that their full-time translator who sits in their office 8 hours a day, I get that same volume of work done in 4.5 hours. Sometimes 4, sometimes 6, but I think it's 4.5 on average is what it takes me.
So what I hear is, now for you in a week or in a day, you're able to work a bit in the morning, work a bit in the afternoon, and basically the rest of the time is up for you.
I mean, it still looks a lot like a normal workday in a sense, because like I usually sit down and start my first work session at about 10. And how I do it is I tend to make my first break very short. I'll do an hour of work like this, 25 minutes focused. My first break's very short. Just take care of the essentials. Stand up, stretch a little bit, grab some water, go to the bathroom, come back, work again. But the breaks between the hours, I let them be very flexible. If I need to take a nap, I'll take a nap. Like if I'm really dying to pick up my guitar and play, I'll let myself do a guitar Pompdoro, just have a full 25 minutes to enjoy it. Like I don't worry about that one. I try not to be more than half an hour, and then I go back and do the next hour. So let's say I sat down at 10, I'm probably finishing the morning at like 12:30, lunch, whatever, and I try to start the afternoon like 2 or 2:30, and then I would work till 5. So in a way, you'd be like, well, it kind of looks like a full work day. But the nice thing is I'm at home. The nice thing is I use those breaks really productively. I do something often that I really enjoy, that I'm passionate about, or that I care about, or I just take care of myself. Like I'll if I'm feeling sleepy and I'm like I said, I could just take the nap, or I could be like, you know what? I'm just going to do a quick 25-minute like yoga session or 20-minute yoga session just to get my energy back up and take care of myself.
If you're in an office, no matter how low your energy is feeling, you know what can give it back to you. Sometimes it's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate, exactly. And even you'd really have to, I mean, I encourage people to do this, but maybe it's a little beyond me. It's like, sure, in an office, if you really just gave yourself permission, I'm just going to freaking do it. I need to just stand here and do some deep breathing and qigong exercises for 10 minutes to get back. But I just think for me, it's a little unrealistic, and I think for most people it's a little unrealistic. It's very hard to give yourself that kind of permission and to know you're going to have to answer 1,000 questions from everybody. What do you do when you stand there like that? Oh,
it's
really?
hard to
Does
do
it help?
it when people are gawking and asking
If
questions.
you're at home, you do it. You can just do it. And you don't have to answer to anybody about why that's important. And I think the proof is in the pudding, because like I said, I can work a full day, get the same amount of work done that the guy in the office did, and I don't feel nearly as stressed about it.
Right. It's not just the time. It's how much energy you're giving away.
But it was really a process to get there. Because like I said, there was guilt involved. I should be working more than this. There was learning to be relaxed while I work was a long process. I still struggle with that sometimes, but I think I've really come a long way now where it's like I really just let myself be relaxed in the work. Yeah,
I'd really like to identify these things with you. Looking back from now, you're saying guilt and like being tense and these things. What were some what was the nutrition that allowed you to shift that?
Yeah, great word. So this is another big theme, I would say, for me, is that like thinking of freelancing as a way to just give yourself a platform to explore yourself. I think we often think of freelancing as the solution to our problems. Oh, if only I wasn't stuck in an office every day, I would immediately be stoked and happy. I didn't find that's the case. You get out of the office and you start, Masa mentioned a lot of these things at the beginning, you actually start worrying about a lot of other things. Oh, what if I'm not productive? What if I'm not making progress? What if other guys, people in the office are learning new skills and I'm falling behind? What if it turns out I'm just a lazy slug and I don't do anything? And that happened to me. I mean, I let myself become a lazy slug for a while, it's like, all I would say is take it as this process of self-learning. It really helps if you're somebody who's already, say, on a path of self-discovery or a spiritual path or something. It's a really wonderful combination because you can use the fears you're encountering as a freelancer to be your fuel for learning about yourself. why am I afraid to not be productive enough? Does this society really need everybody to be out there, starting a new company and like inventing, does everyone need to be, what's his name, Elon Musk? Like can't some of us just plod along and do some work at home? It's like, I really had to question a lot of this stuff. I can't tell you what specific nutrition is going to work for what person, but I just think, for me, the two went together very well, and it would be
The two, what and what?
like freelancing and being someone who is into meditation and being into my own sort of spiritual path and learning about myself, understanding myself. Because I've seen friends who quit their jobs and freelanced, and 6 months later they went back to work and they said, oh, I just suck at managing my time, and I just felt guilty all the time because I wasn't getting enough done, so I just rather be in the office. And my feeling was, maybe that works for them, I don't know, but my feeling was, you just gave up too soon. It's a process.
Would you really rather be in the office, or would you rather believe that you can manage your own time?
Yeah, believe that you'll eventually get it if you just give yourself time and stop beating yourself up. It's pretty natural. If you're used to being in a space where everyone around you can see you and whether the keys are moving and whether, that's, of course, that keeps you moving, but that's a certain kind of stress. Now, as soon as you're out of that environment, of course you're going to slow down. You're going to slow down, and you might become really lazy for a while. But then the experiment begins. Like, how do I need the work to actually get done, but I don't want it to be done because there's this massive pressure hanging over my head. How do I find out the way to get it done so that I feel this work has value because it supports me in the lifestyle I want? I want to get it done because I like me, because it's for me. That's actually really powerful. Like,
It's not for someone else.
yeah, it's for me, and it's for the lifestyle that I want. And because this is supporting me to do the things that I want. And it's a long process. For me, it was a really long process. But I'm so glad I did it, because I feel like it actually blew my mind about 2 years ago. I just had this realization one day of how I was working, and I'd been working for a couple hours straight. With my little breaks and stuff. But I was like, I'm just so freaking relaxed. And I never used to feel this way when I worked. I used to, okay, it's a long process. But I'm glad I did it, I don't know, maybe there's a faster way to do it. I hope so. For other people's sake, but
Faster way to become relaxed in your own work.
to learn how to be, to accept. I think there's good things to do, right? A lot of the time we don't actually track how much we're getting done, or, like I said, how much time is spent daydreaming and how much time is actually spent productively. If you start tracking, you'll have a much more realistic idea, and I think it helps you relax, because I have a system. I know if I just do my 25 minutes, sure, maybe this first Pompdoro wasn't really good, but it's going to even out over time. Maybe I'm in a tough patch and the whole day is not super productive, but you begin to develop faith that it evens out, because if you're recording it, you can see.
Right.
At the end of the week, it all came around. I don't know how many times I've panicked at the beginning of a project, because I'm like, oh my God, to get this project done, I need to be translating at least 2,500 words a day. And I worked my first day, and I only got 1,200 words done. I'm doomed. I'm going to embarrass myself. My client's going to hate me. He'll never want me again. How many times I've been there before I finally realized that it never once turned out to be true. Every project the first day is slow. Just relax. Stay on the schedule, stay on the program. It'll all come out in the wash. By the last day, when you're totally familiar with this project, you'll be massively productive, because you know how everything works. So like, why was I panicking? Why was I panicking all the time? So I think those things will help, right? If you have good tracking of what you're doing, it helps. For me, I'm very undisciplined, so it took me a long time to learn that.
It's good to hear. I also feel that way. On this journey, was there ever a point when you felt like maybe this can't work, maybe it's not for me, maybe like financially it was getting too difficult?
Definitely, a lot of times. So yeah, this is another thing. Not believing that freelancing solves everything. Like it may not. But if you feel like it's not working, it doesn't necessarily mean you failed. It might just mean you need some adjustments. So I had one kind of major crisis where I had been working and doing these freelance jobs in the video game industry, and they're very intense schedules. And so I tended to take a job and work like 12, 14 hours a day for like 5 or 6 days straight, or up to maybe 10 days straight. And then it might be 2 weeks before the next job came along. And that really is hard on your body, because you're not, it's almost like going to the gym and having a mega workout for 5 days straight, and then you take 3 days off, or 3 weeks off, and then you have a mega workout 5 days straight. Like, your body never gets used to anything, right? And I ended up with repetitive stress injuries in my, I mean, literally, the last job I took at that time, I quit it halfway through. This is the only time I've ever just told a client, I can't finish this, because I couldn't, I was in agony to lift my arms to the keyboard. I had so much pain in my neck and shoulders and hands, and I just said, I can't do this. And I spent about 6 months not working. Fortunately, I'd saved enough money at that time, like trying to rehabilitate my hands. And even then, I was still really panicked about whether I would be able to work like that. And I took an office job for a year because it was a mix. The office job was a mix of, I was doing some oral interpreting, I was doing a lot of analysis. So I was, at the job, I would say the biggest part of the job was just reading the Chinese news and writing summaries of certain articles for people. So I didn't have to translate word for word. So my typing load went way down. And a lot more of it was, you might read 10 articles on a topic and give them a short summary of what's going on in that industry or whatever. So I took that job, and it was specifically because I was just desperate to find some way that I didn't have to use my hands all the time while they recovered. And so it really felt in some ways like a step backward, because I was going back in an office at the beginning. But actually I ended up loving it and learning a lot at that job. And then when it was a contract, it was a 1-year contract, and when it ended, I was kind of like, I was excited to try freelancing in a new way.
Oh.
Yeah, and that opened up a whole new phase, because before I'd been freelancing, like I take an assignment, I translate, I get it done, I turn it in. After that, I was like, why do I have to work all the time? I need to come up with like an income stream or something. So I went back to sort of freelancing, but I was only doing enough work to just make enough money that I could work on some business ideas. So this is why I say your freelancing life looks very different at different times. So then there was a whole phase there where I really wasn't taking that much work at all. Just enough. I moved into a cheaper place. I moved to a cheaper part of the world so that I could work on a business idea. And since my rent was nothing and food was nothing, I only had to work a teeny bit, and all my time could go into was developing a blog and trying to develop a product to sell through the blog. Didn't work out, but that period looked very different. What are you freelancing for? I had other periods where I was really trying to I had a band, and I was really trying to get the band moving, and so freelancing was just to support me so we could make the band work. But I've also had phases, like I said, when I was doing literary translation, where I really enjoyed the work, and my only goal was to just do more of this work. I just enjoy it, And now it's like, no, it's to support me. I want money. I need the money.
What is it for you now? Like, what are
Money.
you freelancing for now?
I'm greedy. I want money.
You're greedy.
No. I really, nowadays, I just really, more and more, I like just a nice lifestyle. So I want to have enough money to have a nice place to live. I've been attending a lot of workshops and retreats, like meditation type stuff, and that costs money. You got to travel to places. If you want the freedom to go find the best teachers wherever they are, then you need a flexible schedule, and you need some money to get on that plane and to pay the tuition and to pay for room and board while you're there.
Self-education.
Yeah.
Development.
Yeah.
It's really important.
And then I want a good home environment so that I can keep that stuff up at home. Like, if you live in a chaotic house with 10 people, because you're trying to save money on rent. You're not always going to have that time available to meditate when you want to meditate, you know. So I'm really trying to build like a very just nice, comfortable home environment. So that takes money. So that's what it's for now.
You mentioned how freelancing and your spiritual path are sort of one and the same. Can you talk a bit more about like how they came together or what?
Yeah. Well, they're not one and the same, but I'd say the freelancing is very supportive of that. It really, it's a nice laboratory to see how you're doing.
Experiment with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's one thing if you can be calm and relax on a meditation cushion, but like, can I do it when I'm facing a deadline? You know, of course I can't. But you got to watch that process. You got to see how, you know, and over time you see, oh, I'm a little better at dealing with this now, not go into complete panic mode. But you asked how did they come together? I'm sorry, what was the question?
What does it? I just wanted to bring the spiritual part into the picture so that anyone who's listening who may also have that inclination may.
Well, I think for the most obvious part of it is just that, you know, if you're going to put aside the time each day to meditate, it's nice to have your schedule open. I personally have found that, you know, for example, I need to do not just the meditation, I need to do a lot of work on my body. I carry a lot of tension in my body. So, like, me just sitting and meditating 30 minutes a day isn't as powerful as me also making sure that every day I have time to, say, do some yoga and stretching. And the way I look at sort of spirituality is it's not just a practice. There's like an active engagement with your life. And so I need time for reflection too. So you start adding it all up. It's not just like, oh, as long as I have that half an hour a day to meditate. I found that to feel like things are really moving, for me, it takes a lot of commitment. And part of that, you can't schedule everything. You know, I like to just, if my time is a little more free and flexible, if I notice something in my experience that's interesting, I know that it's okay for me to sit with that for a moment. And maybe I'll pull out my laptop and take some notes about what I'm feeling. Or maybe I say, I'd really like you to sit with this feeling for 20 minutes. I'll just set a timer for 20 minutes and see what's happening. That's what freelancing gives me the space to do. It's not necessarily that I can schedule a meditation and a yoga session every day and then rush off to the next thing. For me, you know, if you're always rushing off to the next thing, it's not what I'm looking for in that spiritual life. In fact, I think a lot of my spiritual life has been questioning that constant need to feel like I have to be productive every second.
That I have to make a plan and execute it to the point.
Right. Like, you look at my version of a plan. There's 24 hours in a day. My version of a plan, there's probably only about 5 hours of that day planned. That's that 4.5 hours, 4 to 4.5 hours for work and the half-hour meditation. The rest, just let it happen how it needs to happen. It's structured enough that I don't end up feeling guilty, like I'm not being productive, but it's unstructured enough that I feel like I have that ability to just have the space in my life to contemplate things, to notice how I'm reacting to things, to not always be in planning mode. How do I get to the next place? What do I need to bring? Have I got my keys? You know, did I feed the cat? Like, for me, if my head is that full, like it's very easy for me to get stuck in that mode. So I need to give myself a lot of space and permission to slip out of it sometimes. Yeah, I'm
seeing like so much of being able to be happy and succeed at what we want is having the mindset to do that. And in an office job, it's difficult to set your own mindset on your own terms. It's like you have to get to work, but I need to be in the right mindset. I have to do this to be in the right. No, you have to get to work.
Yeah,
but that doesn't help.
Right.
So I don't know how long we've been going on, but I was thinking, if you could, I'm going to frame this question in two ways. If you could go back to
Yeah.
25-year-old Josh
Yeah.
and say some things to
Wow.
him,
Perfect.
what would you say?
I think I said one of them, but I'll say it again because it's worthwhile. It's just like, dude, it's totally okay to be confused. It's really rough because I think at that age, you'll see a lot of friends who look like they really know what they're doing. But if you stay with those people for the next 20 years and you stay friends with them, you'll realize how many of them really didn't know. Some of them did. A lot of them didn't. And how many people who looked super confident and like they were headed off in the right direction at 25, by 35 were completely lost. So I felt very lost at 25. So if I just knew that it's okay, you haven't experienced that much in life, just let yourself go experience things. And just because other people look like they know what they're doing, it's not actually true. Most people don't know what they're doing.
And even if they did, that doesn't mean that you have to know.
That I have to know.
Right now.
Exactly. But it helps alleviate that pressure to question that a little bit. Because most people want to look like they know what they're doing. It's great. Maybe 20% of them, they really know. Beautiful. Hell, maybe
Maybe 20%.
Yeah, maybe 20% of them really know. Maybe 80% of them really know. But it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the remaining 20% of us who don't know. Like, life is long. You're young. It's okay. Be confused. You know? It wasn't in my nature to accept confusion. I thought I had to know all the time. You know?
I'm thinking, to frame the question in another way, someone who is at that place now where they're feeling maybe they just got out of work or they're thinking of getting out of office work and they're feeling very confused and then say, okay, Josh, I know it's okay to be confused, but I still... what could you give?
Well, so this is where I'd say, really look at this as a process. And there's, for me, the two sides are kind of the work, but also the self-exploration. So don't just spend all your time thinking about what I need to be doing to make this freelance thing or this digital nomad thing or whatever it is. Don't spend all your time thinking about how to make that work. Spend time thinking about what's the best way I take care of myself in this process. You know, I think that's really key. And be realistic with yourself. You know, I think often we're sold this idea that, like, you know, there's the 4-hour work week and there's all these people who are selling methods that you're going to become financially independent and have your freedom. And, you know, for marketing reasons, they're going to tell you
It's easy.
It's easy. And it's not. And that's okay. Like, and it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. It's okay if it's hard and it takes some time. But so then adjust your thinking about how am I going to stay in this for the long haul? How am I going to take care of myself? If you spend 24 hours a day worrying about your business, you're going to feel really stressed. How am I going to create the space so that I have some time that's just for me to be a normal person and it's okay not to know? And then I'll spend the rest of the time worrying about how to run my business. You're going to need both to be in it for the long haul. Some people are very exceptional. They have like huge amounts of energy and they can just keep beating their head against a problem until they solve it. And I think those are the people that end up writing a lot of the, you know, books on how to be a successful entrepreneur. But it's okay to accept. It's like, I don't think I'm that person. I don't think I'm going to work 12 hours a day for the next 3 years until this gets off the ground. What's a way that would work for me? How much time can I put in? And if you need to go back and do some regular work for a bit to put some more money back in the bank, don't think of it as failure. Don't close the door. Just say regrouping, learning some different skills, trying some new things. Sometimes just changing your environment gives you new ideas. And seeing some new people gives you some new ideas. So sometimes going back, like I said, the time I went back into an office, it was really fun. It really enlivened me, gave me new ideas, new perspectives. But once that year was up, I was like, I'm ready to try again.
Because you've already changed.
Yeah.
Even when you went back to office work, it was already a different point of view.
Totally. So, yeah. I think the idea that I said this before, it's not a cure. The moment you've left your job and you've found something that you think will give you some income on your own time, that's not the cure. That's the platform is now being laid. But you really,
it's the beginning.
Yeah, it's the beginning. You need to figure out, how am I going to do this? Like it's like getting on a ship. You need to get your ship legs. You're dealing with so many unknowns. It's going to feel like a rocky boat for a while.
Right.
But once you get your ship legs, you're walking along.
Ship legs.
Do you know what that is? I think that's what they call it. Like new recruits in the Navy, when they first start living on a ship, everywhere they go, they feel like every step they're losing their balance because the ship is moving underneath you.
Yes.
But then it's like somehow mysteriously 6 months later you can just walk a straight line on a moving ship. You don't even know how you do it, right? And you don't even think about it. It doesn't even seem to you for 1 second that this is an unstable platform that I'm on, right?
Wow. That's an awesome metaphor.
Yeah, and that's time, right? Like no one's going to teach you some magic formula like how to get your ship legs. You just got to be on a ship for a while,
Right.
and it'll happen. But if you panic after you quit your job and you try freelancing for 6 months, and you feel like you're not making enough money, and you freak, or if you feel like I'm not managing my time well, and you freak out and run back to your job, I mean that might be the right decision, right? No judgment there, but also consider the fact that I'm on this huge undertaking, and it may not be something that I figure out all the details in the first 6 months. Am I willing to try again? Let's try again. Okay, am I willing to try changing 1 or 2 small things and see if that helps? It might be the kind of job you take. It might be the type of client you work with. Could make a huge difference. Just for my type of freelancing, there's a huge difference between taking long-term projects and short-term projects. Short-term projects, you can make a lot of money fast, but you never know when the next one comes along, and that's a huge amount of uncertainty to deal with. A long-term project might not be as good an hourly rate, but that might give you the platform to experiment with really managing your time well. You're not always in deadline mode. If every project's a 3 to 10 day project, you're either not working or you're in deadline mode. But if you take a 6 month project, I'm going to translate a whole book. Other industries have their own versions. I don't know what they are, right? But for my industry, you take a 6 or 8 month project. Now you have this time to learn, how do I make it stable? I need to get X amount done a day. There's no immediate deadline, so if I screw up this week, it's okay. I can catch up next week. So I can start to actually live it. So there's all these little choices you can make. Well, so I think it's really important to figure out what's the thing I'm going to look at now, do a little experiment here, and see if it helps me. Maybe one small piece, but you might learn something. And these things take time. It might take 6 months to learn that piece. You try another little experiment or two, and it takes you 6 months to learn another piece, and slowly you find, this is making sense. I can kind of do this. And you still have crises. I had a big crisis earlier this year. Like I just had no work.
Earlier last year.
Earlier last year, thank you. Yeah, I had no work, and I was really panicked. And I actually hit that point. I said, maybe it's time to just go get a job. But when I sat down and looked at it, it's like, no, you know what it was? I mean, I had a really reliable contact who had given me pretty much all of my work for the previous 3 years. Like 80% of my work had come through one agent. And who knows why, but he was having trouble finding me new work. And I wasn't used to the game anymore of got to keep your fingers out there with a bunch of different clients, and see what people want. I was out of the game. And so I was really panicking. I was like, I don't have money, and when's he going to get me some work? And finally I was like, I just have to go to a job. And I said, wait, before I run back and get a 9 to 5, which is nothing wrong with that, but I know it'll bring certain kinds of stresses into my life. Is there anything else I can try? And once I just analyzed the situation, it was just obvious. I was like, the problem is I don't remember how to juggle. Because I literally, he's an agent, but he's like having one client essentially give you all your work. Because everything came through him. Okay, I just got to learn to juggle again. I got to go out and juggle a bunch of different clients. And as soon as I put the work into that, it took about a month, and then suddenly, things are bubbling again, So, yeah, different experiments. Yeah.
So we talked a bit about the past and the now. I'm curious with this life now, like, what are you creating or doing in the time that you're not working? Like,
Yeah.
what is that able to provide you?
I just want to have a nice life, you know, like it's
What is a nice life
Yeah.
for you?
well, like I said, time for reflection is so important to me. Just to see how I'm doing, just to check in and see how I'm doing. And I do like to play guitar, but it's not really a goal anymore. Like, I'm not trying to make a band work. I'm not even trying to get... I'm trying to learn with my guitar how to not expect myself to get better, because music for a while was like a big goal of mine, and then it killed the joy entirely. So now I'm in the process of sort of experimenting with how do I make music fun again. And I have to say, another big thing for me is working at home means I'm with my cat.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy spending time with my cat. Like, she's so sweet, you know?
Yes, we know.
Yeah. And so, like it means a lot to me that I'm in my home, my cat is there, you know. And then I can spend my time making my home comfortable. I've moved into a new place. I'm still making lots of little adjustments, you know. So, like, yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Nice.
And hey, even the chance, you know, to meet up like this. Like, I really enjoy this. As far as spiritual process goes, I think what I described so far sounds like this very solitary thing, but I really find that actually sharing with people what you're experiencing in your process and listening to what other people are experiencing is a huge part of it. We've talked about this. We have our conversation group, right? And this clarity that comes when everyone's sharing their co-intelligence. Yeah, they're sharing their experience in an authentic way. So just having the time for meetups like this, where people are going to have this sort of authentic meeting, is also part of it, I think.
So would you say that this life gives you the chance to live and breathe and reflect and connect?
Boom! Thank you. Wow. I'm gonna write that down. What are you up to these days? Living, breathing, reflecting, connecting.
So if you would like to do those things,
wow,
think about what kind of shifts you can create, and don't be afraid if you're confused. It's totally normal.
Yeah, you too can live, breathe, reflect, connect.
On your own terms.
On your own terms, I hope so.
So I feel like we're coming to an end. Is there anything you'd like to share as a closing statement?
Oh, I don't know. I really like that. I'm just so excited that you came up with that phrase. Yeah, I would just say, like, I tend to be wordy and go in circles, and I know for some people, what they needed was your phrase. What they needed to hear was, this is a way that I can live, breathe, reflect, and connect. But I also hope that by going in circles a bit, because sometimes it's like, I had a friend who used the word granularity. It's like high resolution. Like, sometimes you need to see the high resolution picture and look down at the individual pixels to really get a feel for what this person's situation is. So I hope by talking in circles and about different things, it gives people a chance to feel not just what the ideal picture looks like, but what the kind of the juicy little details and the pitfalls and the despair, you know. If I was going to sum it up, I would say one thing that's when you do have a down period as a freelancer, remember that you also had down periods as an office worker. It's unfair to judge freelancing from its down periods, just as it's unfair to judge office work from the down periods. You know what I mean? So just reflect on that before you panic. You know, you think, oh, okay, it happens. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And thank you so much for listening in today. And my name is aChhun.
I'm Josh.
And see you next time. Yay!
Cool.
That was fun.
Was it? I hope so.